On with the show. Time Cats Special Edition.
I'm not sure if this one should use the Time Cats logo or not, because it's really has nothing to do with anything. It's about ethics in video games journalism. Actually, it's really not, but it is about video games. Anyway,
Well, Jim Sterling is a video games journalist, and it's got video games in it, and I'm sure there's some sort of ethical thing in it.
yeah, I suppose those are
See, that's the
for the
reason ethics in game journalism works so well as a slogan, sort of, because it's so vague that it can mean pretty much anything.
yeah.
That's why Gamergate's attached itself to to that slogan because it just
But at the same time, if it means anything, that also means it's basically meaningless, empty, hollow words.
yeah, not a lot of people realize that.
What is ethics in game journalism, and has there ever been ethics in game journalism? Is a big question. But anyway, let's get into the bulk of what I wanted to talk about here. Jim Sterling did one of his quick rundowns of a game this past week called Murder.
Okay.
Now, Murder is a short game. I mean, it's very short. He finished it. He finished the game in the round in with time to spare in his entire playthrough of it. It's a very short story based game. Um, it's a point and click game, but it's very story driven, and admittedly there isn't a lot there, at least in terms of length.
Okay.
But what is there, I'm inclined to like this game. First off, this is just a personal thing, but I've had ideas involving a futuristic science fiction setting in a futuristic world of very much like the futuristic world that this game takes place in, involving a redheaded trans woman.
Okay.
So I've had this story idea for a while about a redheaded trans woman who lives in in an apartment, and maybe is either a vigilante, tends to be more of a vigilante type of thing uh, 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 than uh, than being a enforcer of justice or whatever, but or at least than rather proper police. But this game is about a redheaded woman. It's not. It's There's nothing in there that's stating that she's a trans woman. But I headcanon her as a trans woman because, of course, I do. Um, that's a thing that I do. Um, and so it's done in a setting that's very similar to settings that already exist. I mean, one of the ones that it's clearly drawing inspiration from is Ghost in the Shell.
Mhm.
There's actually touch. You remember the Tachikomas from it? Those
Uh,
little
the
spots?
tank guys, right?
The ones with the four legs that kind of look like
Spider
spiders.
tanks. Spider tank does whatever. Oh my God, a tank.
Yeah. Well, anyway, those are actually in this game.
Okay.
And it does take a lot of its inspiration from a lot of science fiction. Some people have compared it to Blade Runner. Some people have compared it very heavily to Blade Runner. And yeah, it's short. I mean, again, I can't put it short, but there are details in there that I really appreciate. At one point, after you leave your apartment complex, the main character is going down an elevator. I mean, going down an escalator into the subway, and she's confronted by all these ads, but instead of billboard ads, they're kind of like video screen ads
Mhm.
that are across the wall, so that they can change them up.
Mhm.
And also, while she's going down the escalator uh, into the subway, there's over the broadcast system. There's advertisements being said over the broadcast system at you. at her rather, as they're going down the subway, and I thought that was clever. That's what made me fall in love, really fall in love with this game, is that having little details like, oh, we've gotten to the point in this universe. It's the advertisements got to the point where they're just announcing advertisement over the loudspeakers of intercoms while you're going about your business outside. You're just audio assault of advertisements that are just there, like TV or radio ads, but as you walking about the streets, going about your normal lives. And I thought that was good detail in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really when I started falling in love with this game. Now again, the videos already the video I'm talking about shows the whole game, so I'm not sure if I should spoil the whole plot here. But basically, it quickly turns into a bout where a machine is murdering people, and machines aren't supposed to murder people, but a machine's murdering people, and it states that about a robot uprising because robots are tired of being mistreated by humans and treated basically like slaves.
Okay.
And again, that is rehashing a story that has been done a lot in the past 100 years or so of sci-fi, but it's not necessarily a bad story by any means. I mean, the game is short. I mean, when I first saw it play, I felt it was more of a proof of concept of a game rather than an actual full game itself. But as I started thinking about it and started thinking about short stories, and indeed the game does call itself a short story. I mean, it says right there when you're playing it, it says right there at the beginning, it says a short story by Peter Moorhead. So, and the fact of the matter is, I mean, if this was like a small short story that was just on like say some science fiction site where you can write your own fans or write your own little story or whatever, it would be fine. But this one is a short story that has that has a soundtrack, that has that has its own the visual that you can play through, and so. And so I started thinking about it and saying, and started thinking about it, and started thinking about what Peter Moorhead has himself said, that's also causing us up some of the controversy about gamers being entitled, and about the gaming audience and gamers in general being entitled, and I was thinking about it, and you know what? Even my own thinking. I mean, I think there's a fair assessment of what he said, and I'm not sure he's wrong about that. I mean, let's be clear. After what's been going on the past year, it's clear that gamers are entitled. Let's not beat around the bush there. But I mean, even those that even those that try not to be can still fall prey to it. You know?
Right.
I mean, this is I mean, he has every reason to sell his product for how much is he selling it for? It's he says here he's selling it for $3. And yeah, it's competently put together. I mean, people are saying about, well, this is a game. This is a game where you hit, like someone directly says to him on Twitter. They say, remember, this is a world where many devs can sell a 10+ hour game for $3. And it's like, yeah, okay, but this isn't just a game. This is a short story that plays through like a game. So it falls under many different things. What do you call it? And again, there are short stories. Make no mistake, there are short stories like this that are being sold for $3. As a matter of fact, on my Twitter a couple weeks ago, I was criticizing someone because there's someone who writes basically a short story that's only a page and a half, and I was talking about the nerve of that person for trying to sell access to their work for $3, and for just one short story. And someone told me that I was coming off as rather privileged and entitled, because really they have every right to try to make a bit of money off of it. And and as I rethink about it now, maybe they were right. Maybe I was coming off as privileged and entitled there because again, why shouldn't that person be allowed to sell their work for access to their work for $3?
Mm-hmm.
And so again, this is a again, it's a short story. It's not long. It'll take about 20 minutes, 20 30 minutes to complete. Not even that if you hurry. But yeah, it is a good little story. I mean, I like it. I mean, obviously, other people out there will disagree, and I think the biggest thing about I think the biggest thing that hits me about why it's good is because it leaves me craving more. I want to know more about this character that I'm playing. I want to know more about what's going on and what's going to happen next, and it leaves me wanting more. So not only am I probably going to be picking this game up in the next few days, I am probably going to be picking up any sequel that comes out for it that Peter Moorhead has discussed that he might bring out if this project gets enough. And again, have you seen the have you seen the have you heard about this game or watched the video about it at all?
I know absolutely nothing about any of this.
Okay, well then let me just send you a link to the Steam page.
Yeah, 'cause I had no idea that something was even happening because like as soon as you said we needed to do a podcast right now about something involving Jim Sterling, I had absolutely no idea what was going on. So I honestly I mostly agreed to do it because I was curious.
So let me see here. Control is this even gonna? Is control? Oh wait, it's copy is Control C, right?
Yes.
Okay, that explains that. Let's see here. Control C. There we go. Now another thing that's so I just sent you a link. That includes pictures of the game. As you can see, the sprite work is very well done. It's a gorgeous looking little game. I was watching and I'm just mesmerized by the beauty of this game. It's done again. It's done in a sprite work style, but it's amazing looking.
Okay, so I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it and I'm reading this stuff, skimming through it because I can't really pay that much attention to things. But yeah, I don't see I don't see any problem with this.
And again, and so Jim Sterling, well, he seemed to enjoy it while it was there, but he seemed put off by its sudden abrupt ending. I mean, I guess he didn't look at the Steam. I guess he didn't look at the Steam storefront and say that it says in the very second. In the very second paragraph that it is a 20 or 30-minute playtime, because I guess he didn't. It wasn't expecting it to end so abruptly, and again, when I first saw it end abruptly, I was well, I had some choice things to say about it initially until I thought about it more, and and um, and when Jim Sterling he started talking about the person who recommended it that he said is going to remain anonymous. He said that person had said what that person had told him about the game, and basically how this game's actually takes point and click adventure games. It takes it backwards, and it's doing a disservice to that genre. And again, I don't think that's fair. I mean, I don't think that's a fair criticism of this. I mean, basically, kind of scapegoat this is damning to I mean, it's short. I mean, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, because I have friends who make small little indie games that often come under criticism for not being games, and they're short too. I mean, they're of this length. Certainly, the visuals and sound not of this quality. I mean, these are I mean, these are people even compared to this game. Their games are nothing of this scale. But yeah, I've spent some time defending their work, not just because I'm friends with them, but because I really think that there is a place for more short emotional experiences in the video game world. I mean, there's one game, 12 Hours by Kiva Bay. That's doesn't even that. Well, it has some still visuals and gifs, but some animated gifs, but it's mostly done text based, like it's mostly text based, and it's done on Twine, and she's gotten a lot of crap from the usual suspects about it not being a game because it's text based. And now I'm not seeing that argument here for this game, but some of the a lot of the criticism actually seems to be if I go to the discussion thread, it's a lot of the complaints about it are again about some of the things he said on Twitter more than the game itself. Like example, one says, "Gamers are not my audience," and
When people say things like gamers are not their audience, they mean the supposed hardcore gamers who will yell at people who say things like this game is not for gamers. It's if you don't like how people if you don't like that people use the word gamer as a term for people that
well, here's the thing. I used to consider myself a gamer too, but these days I tend to associate gamers with roving hordes of online misogynists who have nothing better to do than to scream about
I'm
women all
talking to
day.
the audience when I say that, but thank you for summarizing my point. Um, Basically, audience, if any of you are assholes that are listening, if you don't like people thinking of all gamers as being like what Rose just said there, maybe maybe don't maybe don't we're not doing a good job showing the world that we are more than just that.
Well, I've given up on calling myself a gamer. I did that a while ago. I just consider myself now as someone who plays and enjoys video games, and just don't call myself a gamer because I don't want to be associated with that crowd. And if one thing in the past year we've learned is that no one wants to be associated with that
I
crowd,
don't
and
I don't play a
game.
lot of video games, so I don't even have to accidentally call myself a gamer sometimes.
But yeah, I've but anyway, getting into some of the criticisms that have been made and by Jim Sterling of of Peter's commentary. Peter several months ago made did a blog where he was critical of Steam's refund policy, and now throughout the blog, he makes it a point to say that he's doesn't like it how the way it has been implemented. And his biggest point about that, which I was fortunate that Jim Sterling didn't mention that, is his biggest point of contention about it is the 2 hour the 2 hour limit thing, and he said that it's kind of suggesting that games that are smaller, it's that games that are shorter than 2 hours might not be worth it, or might be it's kind of setting an arbitrary limit for how long games on Steam should be. and as if shorter works don't have a place.
I
And
have just gotten done playing replaying through Metroid Zero Mission and Metroid Fusion, and I can attest that those games are designed to be beaten in under 2 hours. We apparently now live in a video game climate where games
where
like Metroid would be considered not real games because of how they're designed.
yes, or at least not worth sale, because not worth sale compared to, because there are games that can be played for hundreds of hours or even thousands of hours or tens of thousands of hours, and so games that don't have a lot of a lot of length to them aren't even worth the price tag. And obviously, I don't have a problem with judging by especially if you're on a limited budget or whatnot, having a game that's you might want a game that can last you for several hundred hours. But I mean, not every game should have to. I mean, that can factor into it, replay value, all that stuff. I can understand that can factor into it, but that is not a sole defining characteristic of a game.
Yeah,
And especially as and while some people, myself included, believe that what is a game should be expanding as more people become devs and get into it and start making more different experiences into it. Like again, like 12 hours, which was all about experiencing being homeless for a night, and it portrays the dev's experience with having been homeless for several years. It portrays the horrors that they went through. And so yeah, I think there is a place in the games environment for a place like that, and there are a lot of gamers that want to shrink what it actually means to be video games to only a few select experiences count as games, and even those that were fine back in the classic days might not be a game if it doesn't.
yeah, that really doesn't work. Zork and other text-based games are still considered to be classic video games and are still held up as champions of their genre and pieces of history. But if they were made today, they would be considered to be bad games and not even real games at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, thankfully, I haven't heard anyone actually say Peter Moorhead's game isn't a game. But again, it is falling under similar types of criticism. And but anyway, going back to what he said about the comments he made about Steam and its 2 hour if you haven't played a game, if you've played less than 2 hours for a game, that you can return it. That was his biggest complaint, and he says again, it kind of puts this art climate up where it feels like if it feels kind of like Steam is saying that if it's under 2 hours, that it doesn't deserve. Well, it does feel like Steam's making a comment about shorter games, or that weird arbitrary 2 hour cutoff limit, and that was one of Peter's biggest complaints in the article that he wrote about it, and so I found it amusing not amusing. I found it a bit disingenuous of Jim to be so critical about what Peter Moorhead said, given the fact that he shared those exact same concerns about the 2 hour about the arbitrary 2 hour cutoff limit, and he also thought that it was that was kind of that was kind of bunk. So it's unfortunate that Jim Sterling didn't point out that Peter Moorhead wrote this article about it, and doesn't even mention the fact that a huge chunk of it, his main point about Peter Moorhead's main point about it, is a point that Jim Sterling has himself made about the Steam. Now, that being said, I don't agree with everything Peter said in there either. There is at one point where he's saying before buying a game, people need to do their research and read reviews. and stuff like that on that, and that's starting to get broach a subject that first got me into listening to Jim Sterling in the first place, back when EA released that disastrous SimCity
Mm.
game a couple years ago. That was one of the things that was being said in defense of it. Well, if you didn't know that it was pulling this shit, then that's your fault for not doing the
I think
research.
that's the main reason why I don't even play a lot of video games anymore, because I'm not able to do research, and if you need to do research on shit before you can play any modern game, then I'm just not going to be able to play games at all. Then why bother?
Yeah, I mean, clearly there are some sales that you should be doing your research on. But I mean, those sales are things like cars
Food,
or houses.
food.
Well, even not necessarily to a food to extent. I mean, if you're going into a grocery store, you're expecting the food on the shelves and the areas that are for food to be something that's edible and not going to kill you. And also there are laws that are in place that if you have any allergies, that it displays on the product what allergies are. So to some degree, you don't necessarily you don't expect like glitchy, broken crap like some of the people
Yeah,
that some of the
yeah,
games Jim Sterling has put. Sorry.
that is a good point. I can definitely, with 100% certainty, guarantee that if you go to a McDonald's, your hamburger will in fact work.
It will be edible,
No,
yes.
no, 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 no. It might not be edible, but it will at least work. You might not be able to play an Assassin's Creed game, but it can at least work for a few minutes.
Well, the problem with this with especially last year's Assassin's Creed game was that it was a bitchy that was a misspeak on me, a glitchy, buggy mess. And sometimes it didn't work well or work properly, and people would fall through
Yeah,
floors and stuff like that.
like there's a
And
difference between a game working and a game being playable. If the game is technically working, you could still play it. You just don't want to, because
yeah,
it's only technically working. It's not actually playable.
yeah, but there are a lot of games that are again, and again, I usually and that's where anyway, getting back to it, yeah, I do think that there's uh, 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 um so I disagree with Peter Moorhead there when he said that you should be doing research and that stuff, because my opinion of that is that maybe on your storefront page or head or whatever, don't be dishonest about it. Be upfront about what
Yeah,
you're
be
getting.
totally
And in this
transparent.
case, and in this case, Peter Moorhead does. I mean, I mean, his game flat out says that uh, 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 um, that his game is only 20 to 30 minutes, and um, so yeah, so again, I don't entirely necessarily agree with everything. I mean, and when he talks about, when he offers solutions for Steam's refund policy, some of his comments, some of his suggestions or comments like it should be based on price of the game, which would again exclude his games from being refunded. Now, and now
Yeah, if a game is like only $1 or something, then refunding it at that point just kind of seems like a waste of everyone's time.
yeah, or $3. And his argument was that if a game's under his counter proposal was games under $8 shouldn't be refunded. And I can understand where some people might can cause cynicism for him, because his argument for what Steam should do to fix the broken game would make it so that his games are non-refundable. And yeah, and again, I'm someone who again comes from a very entitled point of view, and I'm trying to work on that. So I could be wrong here. I probably wrong here, but But he goes on to say that someone who's played his game all the way through, at that point shouldn't be entitled to a refund because they've experienced all he's had to offer, and I'm not entirely certain that's necessarily accurate. I mean, if someone was expecting something different and they're displeased by it, I mean, I don't know. I can understand what I don't know. It's I don't know. The fact of the matter is, like he says, there are people who are saying that they're buying his game and refunding it just to screw with him, and so yeah, it is a very complex. I mean, I don't know where there are things. Let me tell you what's going on in my head right now. There are things that I'm going to say, and then I start stopping myself and start going into stuttering, and just not because I realize, because as I'm about to say it, I'm realizing how it sounds, and I just stop myself from saying it because it comes off as entitled. So my criticisms of, which again comes to the point of where Peter Moorhead says that have a tendency to feel entitled, and as I'm starting to say things, I suddenly veer things I'd actually planned on saying when I talked to you about doing this. I actually had a dialogue set up of what I was going to say, and I planned on saying this. And just before the words escape my mouth, I start veering off into just not saying them because even just saying it feels entitled,
Wait, whoa,
which
whoa, whoa, whoa.
again kind of hits Peter Moorhead's point.
Wow. That was weird. Um, Sorry. So my computer started crashing, and I was about to tweet you on my smartphone to tell you, "Hey, my computer is crashing." But see, it was in the process of crashing. It hadn't actually crashed yet.
So it came back. It didn't crash.
Yeah. And I got it recorded. That well, I'm uploading this, so you'll hear it. Everyone will hear it.
So are we still recording?
Yeah, we're still recording. uh,
Okay. So anyway, as I was saying, I'm not sure where, but as I was saying, I keep on wanting to, I keep on being about to say things, and then I sort of veer off because I realize, again, it feels kind of entitled to say it. I mean, and again, these are things that I had planned to say. I had a whole thing about what I was going to say when we started this, and these are things that I had determined that I was going to say. And then as I start to say them, my mind doesn't want me to because it does come off as very entitled, and so again, the whole consumer entitlement. I
it
mean,
can be very difficult to argue with someone who, who, okay, okay,
well,
I don't,
just to
I can't really
so
I can't really put it into simple words what's going on here, but I'm gonna try to explain it this the way that so I don't like the current season of South Park the way it's going, but I have an incredible amount of difficulty arguing with what they're saying because there's an episode of South Park that's about Yelp and how everyone thinks they're a critic who thinks people care about their opinions, and I can't argue with that because if I argue with that it feels like I'd become part of the problem.
well. My thing about this is the fact that the shrugging is I'm trying to consider his opinion, his point of view here about it, and again, I do come off as just purely from a consumer side, and again, consumers are being shafted. Let's not make a mistake here. Consumers are being shafted, especially as we go more and more corporate.
Yeah, Valve has really dropped the ball on this one.
but not even just in terms of video games. I mean, there's massive. Everything feels like a big scam where they're trying to push out. They're trying to push out more less effective products that you'll have to buy over again quicker.
Yeah, planned
Like
obsolescence has been a common industry tactic in every industry since long before video games started
yeah.
doing it.
I mean, again, one of the arguments that I've made before is about toasters. Toasters used to last you. You could use a toaster.
I
And
was actually
that
going to
toaster,
I was actually going to mention that planned obsolescence was a moral of the third Brave Little Toaster movie, and now you're talking about actual toasters.
yeah. As the fact that toasters back when I was young growing up, we had a toaster that we'd had for quite some time. We had it for several years before it broke down, and nowadays you have to buy a new toaster every year.
Yeah.
It feels every year or two,
See,
and microwaves are the same way. Microwaves, we had a microwave that we got back in oh god, the microwave was older than me, and I was born in '86. So you've got to figure that the microwave was an early '80s model, and so it lasted with some minor servicing. It lasted up until about uh, a couple of years ago, a few years ago. A couple might be been a few years ago, and now microwaves are like toasters. They only last for a year or two, and then you have to go out and buy a new one.
well, the reason the companies do that is because see, if a company exclusively makes products that its entire consumer base buys once and then never has to replace again, they actually won't make any money at all and eventually will go bankrupt. So, like, on the one hand, planned obsolescence in that specific thing is like, yeah, you need to do that, but that's only for things like toasters that you can't upgrade. It's like it cooks toast. That's basically all you need. But video games are ever expanding. We do not need to design things to fail when they can always be improved.
Well, again, I'm not sure I agree with the whole concept of planned opulence because
Obsolescence.
I'm not sure I agree with planned opulence because
You did it again.
um, it's rather shitty.
It is rather shitty, but it's a very
To
it's a
say that and to say that
it's a very
uh, uh,
gray
uh,
it's a very gray subject, honestly. Uh,
I don't find it great. I find it flat out immoral and wrong, and uh, um, I don't agree with that kind of business model in any way, shape, or form. And I think they're crooks, and I think they probably should be. And I believe that they should be prosecuted for it because they're crooks. They're con artists. They are perpetrating a scam to the public, and I am very strongly against that. So again, I again and so I feel that that industries, a lot of industries in general, perpetrate cons on their customers, and and again, now to say that about the but video games again is a very different can of worms, and so generally I do appreciate what Jim Sterling does because he's tends to be a consumer advocate in an industry that's very different from your toaster makers and your microwave makers, manufacturers, and stuff like that. But but yeah, but here's the thing: when Jim Sterling does criticism about these kind of games, like when he goes on about your stuff like your Earth Year 2066 or or your the slaughtering grounds or air control. I mean, these were all glitchy buggy games that in some cases were barely playable, and and in the case of Earth Year 66, might have actually have just been a map with enemies dropped onto it that was, again, that's more of an asset flip kind of thing, where you're just dropping assets into it and not really even bothering to make a game. And so, and and yeah, they're buggy, glitchy messes, and I can understand the criticism for that, because uh, uh, um again, it's yeah, it does feel like they're putting out subpar products for the sole purpose of inundating and flooding the market with it. I mean, again, look at the fact that Digital Homicide in the past year and a half has come out with 19 games.
People give Scott Cawthon so much shit for making 4 games in a year, and yet yet these people think they can get away with that.
You mean the Five Nights at Freddy?
Yes.
Oh, Five Nights at Freddy is different. Again, Five Nights at Freddy I think doesn't deserve that kind of criticism, and even though they do have some glitches and stuff like that. I mean, well, every game has glitches, but
They're not
they're not glitchy messes.
they're not
They're
perfect
not glitchy
games.
messes.
They're not perfect
But
games, but they are good games.
yeah, I agree.
They work.
They're very satisfying experience. Yeah, they're
They work, they're playable, they get their point across, they have just amazing amount of content. A lot of effort was put into them,
and replayability. They've got
and
replayability as well.
and
But
yet
yeah,
yet Scott gets endless amounts of shit thrown on him because he released
because
4 of
they label his work YouTube fodder. Yeah. Now, yeah. So yeah. And again, I don't think a lot of the criticism that Five Nights at Freddy's gets is fair. But again, Jim Sterling didn't really go down that hard on it, because he admits that he just doesn't get it, and I can respect that.
Yeah, he acknowledged that he actually does really wish he could get it. He just doesn't.
Mhm. And like but again, but where his criticism of murder was again, he starts talking about, now again, he's using his friend's words at the end and not his, the words that he uses is the kind of stuff that you generally use for the games like the Digital Homicides productions, where it's just like these are games that are just scams, that are cheap. That are cheap garbage shovelware that are just being thrown out and are oversaturating the market and
No,
destroying.
no.
And I don't think that's what this game is.
I
I think
just
that's unfair criticism of.
just from the screenshots, because I'm sorry, but I just can't keep track of all the things you're saying, but I just from looking at it, I can verify that there is at least more effort put into this than what Digital Homicide does.
Yeah. Well, this isn't an asset flip. This is original art. Yeah. That puts it in a different, that's difference right there, and the fact that they have a composer doing the music. But yeah, this is a competently put together product, and again, I don't yeah, but yeah, it's
I'm sure there are actually problems with it. I mean, no game is perfect, but it really doesn't seem like a
yeah,
game that could.
again, it's one of those games where it isn't going to be for everybody, and if you're concerned about length, if length and value for your pricing is going to be a thing. Some people are saying, like, well, I can get hundreds of hours out of play for Downwell, and it costs the same amount as this game. Well, then get Downwell. Obviously, this isn't the kind of game that you're looking for. But if you're looking for, and obviously, this isn't a game I was looking for either. I wouldn't even know about it had Jim Sterling not talked about it.
Perfect pasta sauces.
But I looked at this game, and it interests me. It has a story. It has a story that I'm interested in, and I'm probably after we're done shooting this, I'm probably gonna go and purchase it. But
Perfect pasta sauces.
so, and but anyway, the thing has gone on to be Peter Moorhead made a comment to about Jim Sterling. What did he say? He said taking a break from Twitter for a couple. No, wait, that was he made another comment before that. Hold on, that was I think he made a comment directly to Jim. Let me check his tweets and replies. He said
Perfect pasta sauces.
you know he said hey Jim, sorry you didn't like the game. You've actually misquoted me on the Steam refunds things, and I'm a bit worried. You can read what I actually said about refunds here. Mostly, I was calling for better implementation. If that's not too much trouble, would you? So yeah, he basically said that, and I don't think that he was wrong in saying that again because. Because again, while Jim Sterling in his video makes a point to say that this guy was a very vocal critic of Steam refunds, and again, most of and his criticisms were most of his criticisms were the same, or the big criticism about it was one that Jim made himself, and Jim didn't mention that. So I do think Jim's was a bit unfair there. But as it's gone, Jim Sterling made it a point to point out Peter's what Peter said to his followers, and that's gotten him a lot of slack. He's been getting a lot of abuse from that, and in general, Jim's videos, Jim's videos can lead to abuse. I mean, the things that he says on his videos, while usually while fair criticism, are usually and I'm not saying that he shouldn't hear that, but sometimes it does seem to his. I mean, I don't think Jim Sterling quite realizes how vicious his audience can be. He finally did make a comment a couple weeks ago addressing the fact and giving a kind of half-hearted don't go after people on Steam thing, but it was really kind of, I think it was, in my opinion, it was too little too late. I mean, first off, he's
Internet celebrities are still a new enough thing that people that can be described as internet celebrities don't really seem to understand that they have as much power and influence over the people that are considered to be real celebrities, because internet celebrities are real celebrities, and real celebrities can get really frightening fan bases built up.
yeah.
And Jim Sterling's fan base is basically I don't know if it was you I was talking to. I was describing Turtle Biscuit as the bizarro Jim Sterling to somebody, because if you just draw them down to their basic elements and their fan base's basic elements, the only real difference is that Turtle Biscuit's a douchebag and Jim Sterling is not, and they're basically both loaded weapons, and one of them is just wielded confidently.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to Jim Sterling made a comment about how he did make a comment video about a few weeks ago about how he finally addressing the abuses that seem to stem up from some of his fan base after he does a video, and I felt that it was a bit of a too little too late situation. I mean, while he does hit some targets, he seems to defend others that I think are a bit unfair. I mean, again, the criticism that. I mean, he basically goes after talks specifically about personal attacks and threats, and and not every and again, being friends with people in the social justice crowd who make these small indie games, and having them watch through planned organized attacks to criticize their games as being not real games. Those attacks aren't personal, but at the same time they do eventually fall into the line of what I would consider abuse and harassment. I watched I watched a friend go through bouts of going through a couple breakdowns because of the criticisms of what did appear to be organized efforts to call out her game as not being a real game, and that was without Jim Sterling's attention to it. That was with its just with just through the normal channels, and basically that was just from people who watch feminist channels and harass them, or who just look for games on Steam Greenlight to criticize and just go through every Steam Greenlight game. But some of it seemed organized because I noticed that some of them had some of the people criticizing it had ties to similar groups and stuff like that. But then you get into well, the biggest thing that I noticed that made me really think that Jim Sterling needed to address this louder and harder a few months ago was there was a game that that Jim Sterling Steam Greenlight Best of Steam Greenlight trailer that Jim did. I forget the name of the game, but it was basically this it was basically this game that had a lot of stolen assets in it. It was all stolen assets. It was all assets were taken as from JPEG files of copyright assets that were taken around the internet. It was basically done with a Mega Man style a type of game with assets from all this person's favorite games and stuff like that. And Jim Sterling did a Best of Steam Greenlight trailer about it, talking about how how it was. About how it was all the assets were stolen and stuff like that. And really, I didn't have a problem with anything that Jim Sterling said in that. The problem came what happened after as a response to that. After Jim Sterling did that video, a lot more people started attacking the game. People started digging into the dev's personal life, and ultimately it came out that the dev was actually an 11-year-old, and that their mother had paid the $100 that you have to do to put a game on, to start putting games on Steam Greenlight. And from there,
At that point, I would be angry at the mother.
well, a lot of people were, but here's my thing about it. I mean, again, Steam. First off, this game wasn't a game that this kid was selling. This kid basically had put together this game. It was just put together this thing, working on it, and using sprites of their favorite characters and stuff like that. They weren't asking for any money for it. This was just a fan project. They're a young kid who really likes these magical girl animes and stuff like that, and made a game based off the Mega Man style game, based off of the sprites, and it's an early project kind of thing. I don't. It's not the kind of thing that should be on Steam, especially since it has copyrighted bits to it that have no business being on Steam. But again, I'm not entirely sure that that when the mother bought the paid for the paid for the same. I'm not entirely sure she knew what Steam was.
Yeah. Oh,
Because
sure, honey. I'll pay $100 for a thing I know nothing about.
well, no, well, here's the you're criticizing it, I'm okay.
Look,
So
it
here's
does seem like something a parent would do. So
but here's the thing. Her daughter, who, let's be clear, is able to put together a game. I mean, let's be clear. She did put this together. This has been something that she's had been working on for a few years. She puts together this game,
yeah,
and wants to show it off, and the mother being proud of her daughter's achievement and wanting people to and wanting to show probably saw Steam probably more as as like a science fair type of thing where where I mean, and you enter it in and you can, and possibly didn't understand that Steam is a proper storefront for more well, again, with Steam's lack of curation, I can understand where anyone might come off and think that Steam is just for any old thing, because let's be honest,
I was trying.
Steam has become a bit of a tire fire.
I was actually considering pointing out that yes, she wasn't exactly wrong
Yeah.
in thinking that.
Yeah, but again, but the fact of the matter is, she wants to highlight that she's proud of what her daughter has done, and so she got this thing to put it on Steam, and I highly doubt that the mother knew what Steam is. I mean, this is the kind of thing that probably is better served being put on something like Newgrounds.
Or Congregate or any of these other free sites for free
Yeah.
stuff.
And
There
since
are
since
free
she was
games.
planning on,
There are
since she
free
was
games
teaching
on
it to be
Steam.
free to play, yeah. Since she was planning on being free to play anyway, it's not like she was trying to. Although I'm sure several of the various copyright holders would probably be upset by it anyway. But yeah, it's not a product that belongs on Steam simply because of the copyright issues. And Steam is a storefront, and putting copyright materials on a storefront like that is when you don't have the copyrights is a big problem legally. So yeah, but yeah, I'm not sure that that the mother necessarily understood sort of, and just kind of wanted her daughter to get recognition or whatever for this project that she'd been working on, and so I kind of empathize with them in that kind of view, because yeah, I understand wanting to. I mean, this is something that she put together, and if her daughter wants to get into the game industry, I think yeah, that's right. You're already starting on putting together your little fan games, and I think that is a step in the right direction towards becoming a game dev one day. But my problem got where is after that news came out that it was that it was a little girl, and that the mother had bought this on Steam. The amount of vitriol that was labeled at the girl, and especially her mother, really turned my stomach in knots. The criticisms about it was that the mother was a terrible mother, that the mother belonged in jail, like how, and they were talking about like
Okay, yeah,
how
jail is
dare
a
she,
little too extreme.
that she was a horrible parent, that how dare she, that it's parents like her that lead to that are leading to this decay of society, and it was all these really harsh criticisms about the mother's parenting, and it's just a mother who paid $100 to try to get to her, who thought that her kid might have a promising career someday in game industry, and wanted to get her daughter's game to get attention, and instead her and her daughter are subjected to so much soul crushing abuse that I wouldn't blame the girl if she never wanted to have anything to do with the video game industry again. because it became the attacks on that little girl and her mother became extreme even after that was and remember, this is all over for a game that was stated from the get-go that was going to be a free game, and this was all being done in fierce defense of copyrights that none of the people who are getting upset about even own the copyright to, and they're getting upset because it's
Yeah, what are these wait,
it's
what are these Mega Man sprites?
no, these were sprites from just various I think one of them was some of the sprites were taken from, I think, from Pretty Cure. They're basically, a lot of them were from Magical Girl anime.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole the HUD, the graphical HUD, the like the health bars and stuff like that, those were taken from Mega Man, and the power ups like the health drops and the weapon drops were taken from Mega Man. But
Yeah, no, so many people should not have given that much of a shit over Capcom's copyright.
well, basically, again, this is the, I mean, that kind of stuff is the kind of stuff that I would expect to see on something like Newgrounds, and it is and again, it's I mean, again, it is something. I mean, it really should have been put on
If
Newgrounds,
this weren't
or
if this weren't video games, then instead of yelling at this woman and and her daughter, then people would have suggested she just go to Newgrounds, calmly and politely, and told her to just go to Newgrounds. But instead, we get
it's
lots of angry screaming.
or just distribute it on her own site, which she was already doing anyway. But yeah, instead we get a lot of people who are insulting, who are just cruel and mean, and so after that. That was around the point when I decided that Steam comments were a tire fire.
Everything comments is.
Yeah, but Steam comments in particular were tired of, because well, here's one of the things that's often said that you've heard Jim Sterling say about comment sections, is the fact that when people start deleting comments on their Steam comments board, that they're trying to hide something and trying to get away with something, and and I disagree with that at this point. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I've seen that even when on stuff like Digital Homicide, where a thread exists to point out where they've stolen assets from, even threads like those can quickly devolve into personal attacks and criticism that becomes harassment, and really, if no dev or dev team or whatever deserves is required to deal with harassments on their store page. Okay, I mean, Steam is set up so that the forums are attached to the game, and ultimately the game devs are the ones who can moderate these forums, but ultimately, I'm not sure if there's a way to even turn off the forums, but ultimately, no game dev is required to sit through and sift through comments that are personal attacks, that are threatening, that are insulting, and stuff like that. So I've become of the opinion that comments threads on that's basically at this point it's impossible to try to use to fairly use the comment about, oh well, they're deleting Steam forum comment, they're deleting comments on Steam. That's okay in my book now, because the Steam comments and discussion forums are such an are just becoming a new way to abuse people. I don't care anymore if someone deletes. I don't even care if Digital Homicide does it, and Digital Homicide are again scam artists, but even even scam artists are still human beings, and don't deserve harassment and death threats and all stuff. And again, Jim Sterling did call out the death threats and the personal attacks to his credit, but he didn't. I mean, again, there's harassment that
Nobody
goes.
deserves to be nobody deserves to have people threaten to kill them over making a bad video game. That's just not.
Or overdo, or even perpetrating a scam like that. I mean, it's not like digital homicide is going and is and is targeting old ladies and trying to steal their life savings from them. I mean, I start understanding where people start losing control of their emotions and start shouting stuff like that because you're taking advantage of senior citizens who tend to who some oftentimes they're targeted because their mental faculties aren't as great, and they go after and they target their life savings and stuff like that, and try to get them to sign away their life savings. I mean, those people. I mean, I mean. I can start to understand where some people might lose control of their emotions and say these people should burn in hell and stuff like that. I mean, and should be set afire. I'm still not saying that necessarily that death threats are okay, even in cases like those. But I at least understand where people start losing control of their emotions. But digital homicides scam. And let's be clear, I do think what digital homicide does is a scam. I'm going to state that flat out, that I do think what they're doing is a scam. But even some of the stuff that they do, they get is not, it goes too far. And again, I don't blame Jim Sterling for necessarily for that. Not exactly, but I mean, as time has gone on, his fan base has started, a good chunk of his fan base has become obsessed with seeing him tear apart the next the next crap game that they don't like, that they even send him crap games to do. And again, that's what happened with Murder. Someone had sent him and told him, okay, this is a crap game, this is destroying the industry, I want you to cover that. And that's why Murder was covered and got into Jim's attention because someone wanted him to tear apart the game. And the usual crowd that always looks to jump on board this kind of things licked their chops out on it and did exactly as tuned to marching order. And again, it's someone made an article that Jim Sterling pointed out to himself, where it's become this thing where even crap games that are actually genuine crap have gained an audience because just because they want to see YouTubers, in particular Jim Sterling, tear them apart. I mean, the Jim Sterling bait is something that Jim Sterling acknowledges himself that has become a real thing. And yeah, it is unfortunate that it's not entirely Jim's fault about it, but Jim now knows that this is a thing, that his criticisms aren't really
So Jim Sterling is basically Batman now.
well, Jim Sterling Jim Sterling knows that his criticisms, rather than rather than actually change anything on Steam, has created a group of fans who watch videos particularly to see him tear down games that bad games on Steam. And while I don't necessarily agree that that he necessarily goes into it with the intent to bully, that is what happens when he covers a game. I mean, again, I can't make any excuses for it after seeing what happened to that to that one game. I mean, again, it, like he said, of that one game with where that girl with that young girl did, and what the young girl and the mother went through. And it's like again, his criticisms of in the video were all completely fair and completely I mean, his criticisms were on point, but ultimately, it does lead Pied Piper, like a Pied Piper leading a herd of rats to leading a swarm of rats onto the dev, and so in general, I've started to wonder if the purpose of why Jim's done this has escaped, and it's evolved into something that's again into a blood sport, and the whole thing about murder thing just kind of emphasizes to a degree about exactly what I was afraid of. Bloodsport is made by Peter Moore, who states right in his bio that he is a social justice. He is in the social justice, and that he's a feminist. He makes this small short game which tend to get the abuse heaped on them anyway. Plus the fact that he's a social justice, that he's in the social justice crowd and a feminist. So those people also get heaped. So it's all the perfect storm of a person who would be targeted for abuse. And then on top of it, Jim Sterling leads his myriad pack of rabid fans to this, and even the ones that again that aren't, and they're now digging into everything this guy said. They're attacking him on Twitter, and he is becoming a victim of Gamergate and Gamergate style attacks because of things he said, and not necessarily because of his game, which again, the fact that his game is short, I mean, and has little to no replay value. I mean I mean there is some valid criticism about that. Some, the keyword there being some valid criticism. That doesn't again to go on these attacks about it, that it's a game that doesn't have a place, and it's a scam or whatever, and it is his game is being touted as a scam, and I do wish Jim would acknowledge a bit that his fan base has become a bit of has become a swarm. I mean, that's one of the things that when he addressed it, I mean, in addition to try to defend harassment that isn't personal attacks, he also tried to make it out like well, that's only a small segment. Most of my fan base isn't like that, and that's the visible part of his fan base, you know.
Hmm.
I have other dev friends who makes small indie dev games that are on Steam, and they dread the idea of Jim Sterling doing a video on their product, because and they dread it, not even if whether he likes it or not. They're going to be swarmed of harassment, and it becomes a point where Jim Sterling says it's not his job to sugarcoat things. These are initial reactions to games, and they're real. They're his real reactions to it. And yeah, I'm not saying that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's evolved into a problem.
Yeah.
And the problem is his fan base are a swarm of rats ready to target and use his videos to pick targets that they then go after, and Steam is already a tire fire and Steam comments are all and discussion boards are already a tire fire without him doing anything anyway. Let's be clear that even if Jim Sterling stopped doing this, the problem would still be there. So
Yeah, Valve really fucked up. Uh,
yeah, so but at the end of the day, I mean, I can't deny I get some perverse pleasure out of watching Jim Sterling pick apart these games too. I mean, I'm not innocent in that
yeah,
regard. And
most of the games get criticisms from Jim Sterling are valid. Like,
yeah,
but
and
not,
and
but
and again,
yeah.
but it is a problem. I mean, I will acknowledge that the level of enjoyment that I get watching him pick apart crappy trash games, crappy broken trash games, um, is wrong. I will admit it's wrong. The enjoyment and pleasure I get from watching him pick apart games is again, it's a blood sport like thing. I'm going in there to watch game devs and watch their products be demoralized, and that is wrong of me. That is completely wrong. That is an utter garbage reason to that it's garbage. I am garbage. In that sense, that's absolutely wrong. And I know that there are other people who watch Jim Sterling to do that. And so while Jim Sterling,
It's not just Jim Sterling. F Film and game critique as its entertainment has been a thing since Roger Ebert,
yeah,
and it's one of the most it's a very popular form of video on the internet. So
mm.
it's not inherently just Jim Sterling. He's just one of the most popular people doing it. So
Yeah, and let me be clear in case Jim Sterling actually reads this. The reason why I'm only talking about Jim Sterling is because Jim Sterling is the only critic in regard to these of anything that I even watch or listen to. I mean, most of the times I spend my days doing other stuff, but when I do focus on criticism like this and critics and stuff like that, and gaming, I'm getting pretty much all of it right from Jim Sterling. Jim Sterling, when it comes to news and information about what's going on in the video game industry, Jim Sterling is my alpha and my omega. So my because I've never really been involved with much of in the way of game forums or communities like that. Anyway, I even came to Jim Sterling because I wanted to hear him pick apart SimCity because that SimCity game from EA because I didn't like what EA was doing, and while again it was a perverse pleasure there. I mean, I'm not sure if it's even fair to defend it, but at least there was horribly shitty behavior going on there. And again,
yeah, that wasn't EA's that wasn't the developers of the game wanted to make a good game. It was an executive decision for it to be
well, from what I understand, there was some decisions that were done by devs that were really shitty as well,
yes.
or by the head dev, the
Uh,
head of productions of it.
As Hideo Kojima and Keiji Inafune indicate, there are some of this horrible shit that comes from the creative minds behind these games. Just because most of the bullshit that comes from the game industry comes from executives does not mean that actual game developers aren't to blame for some of it.
Mhm. But ultimately, I mean, again, I make this as I have discussion and as I draw to the point where I've pretty much said everything that to say. I mean, I don't have an answer for what's I mean, Jim Sterling. I mean, I mean to be clear, I mean again, the fact that Jim Sterling's uh, 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 um, videos have become where it's become a bloodbath for devs, even devs doing but both for devs that have been doing wrong, and then maybe devs like Peter Moorhead who haven't done anything wrong and have released what I feel is a damn fine product. A damn fine product. I'm not going to put an if there. It's a damn fine product, but ultimately, again, a lot of the fault again lies with Steam. Steam, in addition to not curating its space, also its whole comment section is just a mess. I mean, they put they attach the discussion threads and stuff and form right to the right to the game's page. The responsibility of moderating it becomes the dev's responsibility. And if people don't like the way that the devs moderate their forums, that becomes more to further attack their games and their product and attack them through the idea that they're censoring criticism, given the state of Steam, is no longer a valid argument for Steam threads because at this point there's just so much harassment on there that no one should have to sift through the abuse to get to the valid criticism, because there is abuse being heaped on devs here,
I,
pretty much guaranteed. Let's be clear. And if Jim Sterling covers a game, you can pretty much guarantee or doesn't like a game, or if it's a game that's of a more controversial nature, yeah, I can guarantee you there will be harassment on the game devs Steam thread.
I watch a lot of critics, and it seems to me that everybody seems to acknowledge the comment sections are huge cesspools of harassment and horrible and everything horrible about the internet. But the moment anybody tries to block comment sections entirely, that is when everyone immediately forgets that comment sections do more harm than good and start.
Or even suggest accountability on the fact. I mean, again, that's another thing that Steam does. Steam passes like with YouTube comment sections. Steam passes the responsibility of moderating the comment sections on its forums. Because let's be clear, these forums, as much as they're trying to say, oh, it's the game devs forum, these are Steam's forums. This is how Steam has a forum section, but it splits them up into individual games, so it can pass on the responsibilities of moderation onto the devs. And unfortunately, when you put a game on Steam, you're not just putting a game on Steam. You're also accepting responsibility, whether you've wanted to or not, to moderate a forum comment. And those forums often and those forums that you're moderating, that you're in charge of moderating, also come with heaps of abuse labeled your way. So Steam is not just a distribution platform, but it's also a platform to kind of force devs to read their abuse. And I mean, like, there are all kinds of people who make games and stuff like that who I mean, this has been talked about in the past about how people will ignore things written about them because they don't want to see the abuse. That's the thing that even people who are in the reviewing business stuff say they don't read the criticism of the work of what people say and search for what's being said about them because they don't want to see it, because it's just demoralizing. But Steam sort of has this forum platform here where game devs can't escape it, really.
I've worked retail before. Um the maker of a product that the store makes maintain the way the product is sold, they're called vendors, and they usually have an option about doing this. They don't have to do this. Steam has no such option. All all companies who sell products through Steam have to be vendors, have to maintain their own storefront, their own position on the store. They have to maintain their product.
Yeah. If we compare it to, if we compare it to what, if we try to make a comparison into what it would be like for Meat Space, and that's a very difficult thing to do. But if we tried to describe the situation, to meet to meet it, it's like imagine having to be at every location that your game is sold, and you just have to stand there and take the criticism from people. Some people who didn't even some people are just assholes who are just looking to yell at you and tear you down because they don't
Yeah,
like you, or they don't like the kind of work that you do, and you've just kind of got to sit there and take it. That's basically what the best analogy is. Again, it's a terrible analogy.
yeah.
Trying to
No,
trying to
it's
put analogies of what the internet's like onto Meat Space is very
no,
difficult.
it's a better analogy than what I came up with because even when I did work retail, the vendors only came in like once every week or month or so. So,
And the vendors weren't the people who actually, and the people, the vendors aren't actually necessarily the people who made the game. It's like being it's like having a who's a game. It's like only game demo I can think of is Miyamoto. Sorry, Mr. Miyamoto. It's like having Miyamoto available in every store. In every store, so that people can just yell and criticism about and criticize him for an hour about everything they've never liked, and everyone will come in and have an opinion and yell directly at him. It's basically as close as I can say closest analogy I can give to what it would be like for Meat Space. But yeah, it's horrible. Steam is the way the Steam forums are set up forces abuse onto game devs and the people putting out these games.
if
And
we had had the internet and people had been like this in the 80s, we would not have Nintendo. They wouldn't have become a video as they wouldn't have become the face of the video game industry
yeah,
for
I
decades.
don't know.
Because all I could think when you were saying
I don't
that,
know if I feel comfortable. Huh? Go ahead. Sorry.
all I could think about when you were saying that was if people were actually treated Miyamoto like they do every indie dev that's ever been on Steam to his face, then he would probably have quit,
Yeah.
and then we wouldn't have Shigeru Miyamoto in the industry anymore. Do you really want just just imagine like not every game developer is the equivalent of Miyamoto on scale, but just imagine that they could be if you just shut up and let them make their video games. So they made one bad video game, or in the case of Digital Homicide, like what was it, 19?
Yeah.
Look, look. Nobody deserves this much harassment unless they like kill people or something. Okay? Come on.
Yeah, and again, it's like there are forums that exist just to tear people apart like this. And those forums are there, and devs can just avoid, and people can just avoid those and not look at the comments being right. But when you put a game on Steam, it kind of forces forces you to listen to all the harassment and stuff because it's a forum that's forcefully attached to your work that you kind of have to encounter as you maintain your storefront. You have to put up with this, and it's just gross. So again, while Jim Sterling has attracted this level of thing and stuff, it's I mean, it is something that I think he should acknowledge, and I do think he should go on record going a bit further on what is on what's on, and I think he should have gone a bit further on what is on what is abuse than what he did when he made that video a couple weeks ago. But generally, I mean, it's not entirely Jim Sterling's fault either. I mean, for a lot of it, it's really not. It's mostly even not Jim Sterling's fault. I mean, again, Steam has set up this this thing where they don't feel accountable to anything, and they allowed their and the way they've set up is just as a distribution platform for devs to be abused. And again, that's not Jim Sterling's fault. If were it not for the way Steam operates. Were it not for the way Steam operates and does this forums, I probably wouldn't be here making these comments about Jim Sterling now, because again, it's not entirely his fault either. But I do wish that he would. Yeah, I do wish that he would acknowledge that there are these that there are these people that and I do wish that he acknowledged that people do get harassed because of it, and people are. I mean, the fact that when he pointed to whether he meant to or not, he has 10,000 followers on Twitter, and when Peter Moorhead contacted him on Twitter, Jim Sterling basically did an equivalent of a dot at to him and point to all his followers that he was getting, that this dev was contacting him and saying things to him, and while the criticism that Peter Moorhead has received afterwards were not criticism that Jim said. These are people who've taken the initiative on their own to attack Peter Moorhead with criticism that Jim Sterling has not said. But after a year and 2 months of Gamergate, I do wish by now that people would learn that when you have that many followers, and you do a dot at equivalent where all your followers are going to see that if you deliberately frame it so that all your followers are going to see your disagreement with someone, it's going to cause abuse. I'm someone who has my public Twitter account where I do social justice things has maybe I have 325 followers. And I've reached the point where, to avoid even Gamergate, even I generally avoid pointing out directly to people who have had arguments. I will usually go through subtweets without naming, sometimes without even naming who they are most of the time. And stuff to try and just criticize what they've said and try to leave them out of it, because even with 325 followers, I could still create a dogpile situation, and I don't want to create a dogpile situation for some of these people. On very rare instances, will I go out with their names and directly tweet them so that people know what's going on. And usually when it's like that, it's usually someone who's purposely trying to get me abused.
Right.
And I will point out to them saying, okay, this is abusive stuff that's trying to get me dogpiled. Again, there was someone who worked at an indie game review magazine that does indie games, and that was also a diehard supporter of Total Biscuit, and I made some criticism, some criticism of Total Biscuit. What this happened several months ago, and I specifically had said that Total Biscuit's a hypocrite for on some things, but I was saying in such a way that I mean people could do the same thing, could make the same claims about his wife. I'm not going to name it specific because I don't want to drag that out. But I said that people could make the same criticisms that he was making so that could make the same criticism about his wife, and I said, but they shouldn't because it's complete bullshit. And this person who at least claimed or who worked at this indie game dev mag, took what I said. Tweeted out to Reddit saying that I was making these criticisms about Total Biscuit's wife when I was saying just the opposite, that they shouldn't be made about his wife, and he shouldn't be, and that he's making glass house criticism because I was saying that the same analogy that's the same criticism that he was in could be levied at his wife, but they're both bullshit. But it would be bullshit to do that. So I was saying the opposite of that. I was saying people shouldn't attack his wife for that, and I was saying he shouldn't be attacking this game dev for the attacks that he's doing, because it's just complete bullshit and it's complete nonsense, and it's a glass houses sort of thing, and I was portrayed as having said that people should attack and that was portrayed by this person that I was saying that Total Biscuit's wife got to her position through sleeping with him, which again was the exact opposite of what I was saying. I was making a point about how nepotism is not necessarily an infinite evil. Like having someone that you're related to work with you isn't necessarily always genuinely a bad thing. And that was the point, and that was point, and that's why, and so I was saying that Total Biscuit going on and on about nepotism when his wife is the CEO of his brand. I mean, it's just like stop it. Stop it. Nepotism isn't fair. It wouldn't be fair to criticize your wife for nepotism, and it's not. And the way you're using it isn't fair either. And when I was made out by this other person who's a fan of Total Biscuit, that I was saying that I was criticizing Total Biscuit's wife, when I in fact wasn't. I was saying that I was using it as an analogy of how Total Biscuit's attacks make no sense. And so this person tried to bring a dog pile on me, and so I pointed out that this person was completely lying about what I was saying and trying to bring a dog pile on me, and that person, I did try to get fired. I will admit, I did launch I did, and as far as I know, they no longer work there. I'm not even sure if as far as I know, they no longer work. So for all I know, I did get them fired. I don't really know. I didn't follow that much, but yeah, I did try. I did well, say try to get them. I did try to get them reprimanded at least, because this was someone who claimed to work in who just comes out of the blue and starts harassing me and just flat out lying to me about this and trying to get me harassed by just basically lying, and it's not, and it was a mess, but I don't usually like to do that anymore. I used to be more into that combative stuff, but I've kind of regretted that because I realized how much but that I'm just pointing that out as a case where where I start to understand where you might want to point out where someone's coming after you and trying to dogpile you. It's okay. It might, at that point, pointing them out, even at risk of them getting dogpiled themselves, it's okay to point them out. But Jim's pointing out of Peter Moorhead's Twitter to everybody has gotten to the point where Peter Moorhead himself has said that now he's leaving Twitter for a while because he can't handle the abuse that's being piled on him, and And again, it was just a matter of Jim Sterling using his Twitter account irresponsibly, and he doesn't understand, and he doesn't seem to understand that him having 10,000, of him not understanding that he weaponized his 10,000 followers, even not meaning to, and yeah, that's basically ultimately what led to me deciding that I wanted to talk about this today, was because this guy's basically been chased off of Twitter now.
Yeah, video games. We like doing that. Chasing people away from stuff.
Yeah.
Fun times. Wait, this is a fun world we live in.
Yeah, it's so yeah, but ultimately, if you sit through this rambling about it, I still recommend Jim Sterling's channel, despite my criticism of it. I still recommend it. I recommend Peter Moorhead's game
Murder.
Murder.
All
Yeah.
right. I'll put links to Jim Sterling's video and to the Steam page in the description of the video.
And also I recommend subscribing to subscribing to Jim, and generally I recommend, if you can, even doing his going to his Patreon, and if you can, kick a couple bucks his way, because again, well again, I don't like what's happening here. I do in general. Again, Jim Sterling's really the only person on terms of video games that I listen to. So
There are very few things I disagree with him about, but this and Five Nights at Freddy's was one of them. But he turned around on Five Nights at Freddy's, so I'm gonna guess he'll turn around on this eventually.
well, I mean, again, it becomes a point where it's more of the. I mean, again,
At this point, the damage is already done. Him changing his own opinion isn't going to do much.
well, well, to be fair, to me, if I would honestly, if he, if I mean, it was his surprise criticism at the end, where he started talking about what his friend had said again. Again, the reason why I say that his friend, that was kind of a backhand way to suggest it without being the one to have stated it himself. Put that criticism out there that Peter Moorhead is damaging the industry and is damaging the point and click industry and is setting them back. I disagree with that. It's again, that's the kind of where if Jim Sterling had gone and had said that in Peter Moorhead's Steam forums, I would have definitely have said that. Yeah, that would have been abuse right there. That would have been abuse. And but again, he didn't. He said it on his own thing. But I'm not sure that. I mean, this is one that what he said there is one of the few times where I think that his criticism wasn't. I think he went too far in this case,
Yeah,
and what he said there. And again, it's the kind of things where I initially kind of agreed with it, but then I sat there and thought about it a while and said, you know what? Okay, actually, I actually like what Peter Moorhead's done here. I like his uh, um, I like his I like his game. I like the artwork, and if Peter Moorhead, if you're listening to this, and you would like and you would like to expand expand this character and working and you would like to make her trans, um, I'm available. I can also put you available if you'd like to make this character trans and you like to explore it in such a way that's still sensitive to the issue of trans contact. Feel free to contact me on Twitter you know what uh, uh, oh god, do I really want to put my Twitter handle attached to this? Okay, contact me at
he could just talk to me on Twitter, and I can give him the information.
yeah, yeah, you can contact me or Josie. I know some. I know some trans people who would probably be willing to. I'm not sure. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if they would not. But I know
Yeah.
I do know trans people on Twitter because I do hang out because being trans myself. So if you like to make a trans woman character, or if you'd like to, make them gender fluid or non-binary, I can hook you up with some people who might be interested in that too. But if you want to make them trans woman, I would also be able to happy. I'd love to give some advice and share some ideas with you just discuss how I've and pictured my own and if maybe you'd like to discuss that or not or just keep the character the way it is and not have it become trans or whatever, you know. I mean, it's like, yeah, I'm yeah. um but yeah, I like what you've done here. I like the world that you've got there so far, Peter. I'm very interested in seeing you continue. I'm hoping very much that you'll continue to expand the game. Um, and yeah, I'd like to see more I'd like to see these main characters. I'd like to see them fleshed out more in your next title, and maybe having supplementary titles that flesh out the character more and give us the background more about that. I'd love that. So if that's something you're interested in hearing about me from, go ahead and contact me or Josie, and we can discuss ideas or not. I mean,
Yeah, I'll put my Twitter account in the description. Just uh just uh
just in case.
just message me on Twitter, and if you're interested in putting Rose in your game, then I'll give you her.
Well, not me, but I mean, if you're interested in talking about, but if you're interested in talking about making the character trans, because again, the character is right now does not have much of a personality. It does not have much developed. But if you want to develop her as a trans character and would like to, and assuming of course that you don't already have someone. I don't know who you're working with. It's clear that you're working with some people. So maybe maybe you already have something. But if you want to take it in that direction and you want to consult with trans women about how to make about how to make a trans a character that's a trans woman without broach that sensitive subject, contact me and I can, and either myself or or we've got others that other people that would probably be happy to work with you on developing the character. If you want to go in that direction, you don't have to. You can again, like I said, I've headcanoned the character trans. She might not be. Again, you haven't really developed the character. You might already have an entire history laid out for the character that you already have, and that's fine too. In which case, in which case you're fine. But if you haven't, and if you're interested in developing the character more, and you want some input on making her trans, yeah, contact me because I really love what you're doing, and like I said, I've already headcanoned her trans because a trans character in this sort of setting is exactly what I've been looking for.
And
So
I have no opinions about the game, but I have added it to my Steam wish list and will be picking it up when Social Security approves me for disability. They haven't
you know
yet.
you know what? How about I buy you a copy of it after this.
I don't even know if my computer can run it.
Um, it seems to be one of those games that isn't very heavily technical. So probably good.
All right. All right. So yeah, Rose will be buying me a copy of this game after we're done here, and I will be playing it probably tomorrow or the next day because I'm very tired right now, and I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow.
All right. So anyway, but yeah, we'll throw up some links to God, throw up. That was probably not the best way to say
No,
that.
no, no, no. I'll rephrase it. So we're gonna vomit up some puke into some descriptions there with the link there,
Yeah.
and turkey bacon.
But anyway, yeah. But yeah, this was. Yeah, this is just the thing that I felt. So yeah, so I think we're done here, huh, Jesse?
Uh, uh, maybe. I mentioned that I'm very tired. Yes, I am. I'm trying my best to do, but I can't really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So you'll probably edit and put this up tomorrow then.
I will work on it tomorrow. I'm not entirely sure if I'll be able to finish it by tomorrow.
Okay, that's fine.
Tomorrow would be Monday, the 26th for the listeners. So if this goes up on Monday the 26th, then I was able to finish it tomorrow.
Hopefully, the part
Are you
the part that we're at here. No, I have no. Am I dying? Whoa! Why am I coughing so much? Oh, anyway, but hopefully this whole part will be hopefully the part where from where I said where we're done here. Hopefully that part will all be edited out from that part on.
maybe I don't maybe this part's kind of funny.
What, me dying of coughing? Yeah.
All the way you were coughing and then you just screamed, "Am I dying?"
I'm dying, Squirtle.
Ah,
Yes, that's memes. That's.
is this
Oh, I'm
memes?
gonna go here because I can't stop coughing now.
Coughing, coughing.
So anyway, take care, Josie.
Okay. Maybe you should get some Paralyze Heal or antidote or some other thing. Full restore. You know, just
Bulbasaur.
Bulbasaur. Baba
Bulbasaur.
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 Venusaur.